I'll share with you my super simple one-hand meal plan approach. I'm not saying this is going to cover every single basis for every human out there, but it is a fabulous way to build a foundation. And it stands for PFFV. So if you were to think about at each meal, 3 times a day, my goal is PFFV.
You know what? I'd rather be happy than being right. That is true. It's like your body says, okay. Hi, everyone. I am so excited. I have Amanda Hinman today, and I'm very excited that you're here because we are going to talk about a very juicy subject that is kind of becoming a fashion, and it was a taboo for many, many years. But I think the conversation now has shifted. So I want to welcome you, Amanda. Thank you for being in the show.
Claudia, I'm pleasure to be here and excited to have this conversation because I do think it's so important. It affects so many women now when we think about our health and our vitality.
Yeah, exactly. But you are a functional medicine coach. So before we even begin into this, explain to my audience, please, what is that?
Yeah, it's a great question. So functional medicine is really taking an individual-centric approach instead of looking at health from a perspective of what symptoms do you have, what diagnosis do you have. It's really looking at how can we factor all the different systems in the body, our nervous system, hormone, endocrine system, cardiovascular, our immune system, all these different systems and how they work together and find the source of blockage, impairment, or depletion that's leading to your unwanted symptom and really help to rebuild health. I think it's most important in a way that's understandable and accessible for each person. Because, for example, I could give you a very healthy meal plan. But if you're a woman who travels 5 days out of the week and is hopping on airplanes for her career or professional life and has very limited access to prepare your own food, that meal plan may never actually be able to work for you, right? So it's about what's going on in your body physiologically, but also what's happening in your life so that you can make some practical steps to rebuild health and radically change the way you feel.
Because I remember, I want to clarify one thing. Menopause is not just for 40 and 50 years old. I mean, there are people that start experimenting these symptoms when they are under 30s, correct?
Correct. Yes. I love that you asked this question because clinically speaking, we consider menopause once a woman has gone 12 consecutive months without having a menstrual cycle. So that's a specific term or definition of when someone is menopausal. But the period of what we call perimenopause, or the time when your hormones are shifting and changing and fluctuating, can last anywhere from 5 to even 10 years before that official 12-month menopause cycle hits. So for some women, that is in their 30s, late 30s, 40s, they're experiencing significant hormone changes and body fluctuations and putting on weight and having bloating and having more anxiety and insomnia. And it's correlated to how your body is able to ebb and flow through those hormonal shifts.
And sometimes we don't relate to that because we think, oh no, I'm too young for this. So I'm gaining weight. I can't sleep. I am moody. I don't have sex drive or whatever symptoms you're feeling in that moment. And you go to a doctor to try to fix that symptom, right? Not really to go to the root of the problem and say, okay, let's check your hormones. Let's see what's not working for you. Do you have that experience? Do you have clients of yours that come to you and they have tried absolutely everything? They have gone to different doctors. They still don't know what's wrong with them. And it was the simple thing as to, let's check your hormones.
Yes, I would say most of my clients, most of my who come to me, I'm not the first stop. They have worked with either their primary care physician or their OB-GYN, or even with other functional doctors and practitioners, acupuncturists, chiropractors, different functional doctors. And many women get really frustrated because they've spent a lot of time and money and they've maybe had a whole bunch of lip work done, and sometimes there's the one half of people who are told everything looks fine, right? Because there's nothing that's noticeable yet. So you're told to just kind of reduce stress, get moving and work out a little bit more and watch what you eat, right? That's the general kind of old school conventional approach. Sometimes though, women have gone beyond that. They've gone beyond their primary care physician and they've had a whole bunch of functional lab work testing done. And we're given a list of 12 or 15 different supplements to start taking. and rigid food elimination diets. And like I said, that can be just as disheartening too, because at first it feels like, okay, I've got some new strategies and some new things to think about. But the practicality of achieving that consistently in my life is not very feasible, right? So that's why what the approach that I work with women is first and foremost to help them understand the dynamics so they
Mm-hmm.
can understand where to prioritize
Right.
areas that are going to move the needle for their health when it comes to sleep, when it comes to food, when it comes to movement, right? These are all things that we know
Mm-hmm.
logically are beneficial for us, but a large part of it is actually using brain science to rewire our brain. Because until you have a new thought, belief, expectation about choices and decisions that you're making in your life, you can try and willpower your way all day long to eat different foods, and it can last for 2 to 3 months, but it won't last for two,
Right.
3 decades,
Right.
right?
It's
So
a
then that
band-aid.
problem will come back again. So
Right.
that's why we do we use brain science to rewire. It's like shifting your identity of who you are and how you show up in your life and what things are a value and a priority for you. And that's how you create that permanent, sustainable transformation in your health.
It's like a support to the medicine, right? Your brain has to go hand with the treatment that you're going through, because if not, you're going to go back to your old patterns and it's not going to work.
Yes, exactly. You know this from the work that you do, right? It's like that we can have the tactic, we can have
Mhm.
the food or the nutrition or even the supplement, we can have the tactic, but if it doesn't go with the mindset, if it doesn't go with the inner knowing
Right.
and just who you are, it's not going to be sustainable.
Right. Let's talk about hormones. I mean, there is a lot of people that are super afraid of hormones. There is a lot of noise about hormones. If you had cancer, you can have hormones. If you have whatever disease, you cannot have hormones. But there are different kind of hormones, and there is a lot of people that are candidate to take them. Like I had cancer and I am on hormones. So
Mm.
for years, I didn't even want to hear the word hormones because
Scary.
doctor said to me, my goodness, you have thyroid cancer, you can't have any hormones. But then it gets
Mhm.
to a point that nothing else works. So I start going to alternative medicine. I start asking different questions. I start getting curious about different treatments that could help me because, okay, the hot flashes is not the only thing we're dealing with. Sometimes I was laying down in bed and I couldn't roll to the side because I had inflammation all over my body and I didn't know where this inflammation was coming. And everything was related to hormones. So can you explain to my audience what are hormones and why are they good for us?
Yes, great question. So, hormones, I think to think of hormones as the messenger molecules in the body. They really are designed to deliver a message or a signal about how our different cells and organs in the body should function or designed to be working. Some of the most popular metabolic hormones are, of course, we hear thyroid hormone. You mentioned thyroid. Thyroid is
Mhm.
what a lot of women attribute to having weight gain because it's very common, especially after age 30, for women to have suboptimal thyroid function. It means like essentially thyroid is how well your cells can produce energy. It
Mhm.
regulates things like your body temperature, your hair, like new cell growth, like I think of a lot of hair loss. It can
Right.
be linked to poor thyroid function, weight gain,
Mhm.
because metabolism is important to have adequate thyroid hormone. So thyroid is one of the main ones. Another key hormone is insulin, right? Insulin is a hormone that helps to regulate your blood sugar level. Whenever we
Mhm.
hear the term pre-diabetes or diabetes, it has to do with how well your body is responding to insulin. And that's one that's really important when we think of metabolism, of keeping our metabolism in a strong, steady state, or conversely, if it becomes sluggish. Another hormone that's really helpful to think about is cortisol. I actually think of cortisol as like the master hormone. And
Mm.
most women tend to initiate or assume cortisol is related to stress. We just hear about like, oh, you get the cortisol belly if you're gaining weight around your
Right.
midsection.
Right. That is a typical sign of menopause, right? The belly
Yes,
fat.
the belly gate. Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, and here's why that happens many times. Again, it's not universally, but for many women during perimenopause, our hormone levels of sex hormones, estrogen and progesterone in particular, start to decline. As we
Right.
prepare to stop ovulating as regularly, So progesterone usually drops off first, and that
Mm-hmm.
can be 5 to 10 years before estrogen starts to go low. Ideally, in the body, we want to have a balance of estrogen and progesterone working together because they're kind of opposites. Like, for example, estrogen helps to grow, cell growth and proliferation, right? So even if we think about people who have higher estrogen levels can be more easily adept to having higher adipose fatty tissue, right? It's a growing cell. Whereas progesterone can kind of help you keep you a little bit more like less water retention, more lean, and it helps to keep things more in balance. That's just
Right.
one example.
Mm-hmm.
But when those levels start to shift in perimenopause, what happens is some of the underlying dynamics, like I was unaware of how often I was triggering a stress response in my body based on how I was responding to my daughters. I had daughters and my husband, and just kind of even team members and my business. Like if I was somebody who was quick to get frustrated, quick to be impatient because of how I was interpreting whatever situation or whatever conversation we just had, signal to my nervous system, whoa, 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 things are not safe here. We better go on high alert. We're going to pump up some adrenaline and some cortisol, right? So I was unaware of how frequently my nervous system was signaling stress response, stress response, stress response. Because when you have progesterone, it kind of acts like a little buffer. It kind of mitigates
Right.
the effects of it. But when my progesterone started to drop much lower as I am entering perimenopause, all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden you don't have that buffer of progesterone anymore. So when you're doing the same behaviors and the same reactions, stress response. Now all of a sudden cortisol seems like the bad guy. When really cortisol isn't the bad guy. It's meant to help us, but
Right.
it's just to show how is the body prepared to respond to stressors. Ideally, we're not triggering and tripping that stress wire all the time every day. I was before I knew
Wow.
better, right? So that's why a lot of the work that I do and helping women to really transform and heal their bodies is a yes, they educate and they understand what their hormone levels are in their body and what their body needs from a nutrient perspective, but also how can we help you to have less triggers, have less triggers? So fewer things in your day-to-day life are going to set off the alarm for that fight or flight stress response in the body.
Wow, that's so
Make sense?
interesting. And you know what? I was reading an article about UTIs and
Mhm.
how a lot of doctors were giving antibiotics, and then alternative medicine doctors were giving estrogen, vaginal estrogen, because that is what was curing it because of the age of the patient. It's not the same UTI that you might have when you're 20 years old and when you have it
Right.
at 40, you know? So
Mhm.
at 40, you have to treat it totally different. Is that correct?
It is, yes. Because again, the physiological environment inside the body is changing. So when we think of like a UTI, really, if I'm going upstream from a UTI, what is
Mhm.
the root cause of that? It's a weak immune system, right?
Right.
Because from a UTI, the body, if we have a strong and capable immune system, should be able to fight off any little bacteria or virus, but even in
Mhm.
the urethra, right? But when our immune system is compromised, then the immune system can't fight off those little bacteria, and that's when you result in the manifestation of a UTI. So yes,
Wow.
estrogen can help. It can definitely be, but again, I think of that as it's definitely a support, and it's a different support than an antibiotic because it's not going to harm your gut microbiome in the same way that an antibiotic can.
Mhm.
However, the even further upstream is like, what is the scenario in the environment that's putting your immune system under chronic stress so that
Right.
it can't be working at full capacity. I always I think of a terrain theory of health
Mm.
versus a treatment theory. What does that mean? Terrain is where we look at the physiological environment and terrain that is being created in your
Right.
body every day that allows your systems to function at either a high level or a lower level. So we want to look to optimize the terrain, optimize the signals that your body is getting every day.
What is the difference between the estradiol and the estrogens?
They're just different forms of estrogen. Like there's kind of three different forms of estrogens, and they have different. Estradiol is less
Oh,
potent
that
than
one,
estrone.
estradiol. I'm sorry.
Yeah, than estrone. So there's different. I mean, they're like slightly different chemical structures in the body of how they respond to hormone signaling. But there's like one form, estrone is the most potent form of estrogen, and estradiol is the one that we tend to have after like more later in life, and it's less potent, if you will. But the body
Okay.
responds. I mean, they're all different forms of estrogen, if you will, but they're
Mhm.
just slightly
And
different.
some people use both, right?
You
Or
can
not?
use estradiol is more common for
Mhm.
like hormone replacement therapy, but you can. They're depending on the main thing when it comes to hormone replacement therapy is understanding how your body processes hormones. Like you
Right.
mentioned previously, like having a worrier, like fearful of
Mhm.
a risk of increased cancer if you've
Right.
had some prior experience. And the main thing is to know, again, if you go back to having strong detoxification because you have enough nutrients and we have
Mm.
strong stress resilience systems in the body, then it can process hormones that we put into the body in a more effective way. So it's really important to know how your body handles and processes these hormones to know what's the best fit for each person.
Definitely. I think everybody's different and they have to find what works for them. But in your book, Thyroid and Hormone Solution, you talk about the 5 pillars to understand the root cause of your illness. Can you talk a little bit more about that? Because I think that it's going to highlight certain areas for some of the people that are listening, and maybe they're going to go, oh, wait a minute, I am feeling like this. This is something that I need to pay attention to.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. Like you said, and I love to use this a story. So I'm thinking of a woman, Kathy, that I worked with. She came to me because she was like, I'm turning 60 and I just want to feel better. I feel like she had had a history of breast cancer about 10 years prior to working together. She was a newbie to the health world. She definitely was aware of like eating healthy and choosing salads and moving her body. She worked out with a personal trainer twice a week, but she still felt sluggish. She had low energy. She's like every day at 2:30, 3 p.m., I just like hit a wall in terms of
Mm,
energy crash. She didn't have good like tone and definition. She's like, I'm like embarrassed to wear a tank top because I feel like my arms look just really like saggy and flabby and
right.
wanted to lose a good like 10, 12 pounds. And
Mhm.
she was struggling with some digestive discomfort, like bloating and things like that. So it's a matter of like getting clear. So the first step one is looking at the root cause for this
Mhm.
individual, right? So for
Right.
Kathy, we looked at not only like a symptom questionnaire and checklist, also her health history, knowing that she'd had a history of cancer, she'd had a history of, working out with a personal trainer. So it's not her first time doing movement, looking at all these different factors.
Right.
And we did some testing, some micronutrient testing. I'm a big fan of finding out are the nutrients that your cells need in order for them to do their job, are they even getting to the cell to begin with? Because if
Right.
we know that the nutrients aren't getting there in enough quantity as desirable, no wonder you're not feeling good because your cells, it's kind of like
Right.
expecting your car to go drive down the highway when there's no gas in it. It's not going to work. Right? So
Right.
we did a micronutrient test, which is a very simple at-home test you can use, collect the urine, and it measures the nutrients. And we saw that there were some key areas where she was missing. Like she just
Right.
didn't have enough antioxidants. She didn't have certain B vitamins to help detoxify. So then it's like, okay, now we have a game plan of what
Mhm.
foods, a couple of 2 or 3 targeted supplements to help her get this nourishment in. That's step two is replenish the nutrients. Because you
Right.
can't expect your body to feel good if your cells don't have what they need to function
Right.
fine. So step three then is to restore digestive strength.
Mm.
Oftentimes with our gut health, there are other factors going on or diminishing your ability to, even if you get the good food or the good supplements going in the mouth, they may not be able to be broken down and effectively utilized and get into the cell, right? So we have to make sure your gut health is really strong and healthy. So we did some work there, supported her gut, that's restored digestion, the ability to separate the nutrients and move it through the body. Step four is reset your thinking. Because like I said, if I gave her this meal plan of foods for her to choose and recipes and things like that, and she just didn't have the belief that this is actually going to make a difference. I'm like, oh, I've tried this before. Why bother? I've done this before, Amanda.
Right. Right.
She'd already make the decision. So we do some of the brain science and really look at what's the block, what's in the past has prevented you from enjoying nourishing your body. Like she was
Mhm.
somebody who oftentimes would just skip breakfast, work through the day, and then all of a sudden be 4 o'clock, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, I'm famished and I'm exhausted."
Right.
Why didn't you have being in touch with your body enough to know that you need to nourish it, right? Have the self care.
Right.
So we did the brain science, the rewiring. And then the step five is removing toxins because once we're kind of getting that body healthy, getting some nutrients in, we want to make sure we don't have too much inflammation building up that can always cause
Mm.
problems. So we want to help have your body stay under its what I call toxic threshold so that
Mm.
it can maintain for a long, long time your health and vitality. So really, when we went through those steps, and honestly, Claudia, when I tell you, she's like turning 60 on her 60th birthday, she's like, I feel better now than I did when I was 32 years old. She's like, I have
Uh,
definition in my arms. My body feels good. She's like, I have a clear system that feels good to nourish myself. I take pride in how I take care of myself. And a lot of it is it's like a redefining of your relationship with yourself. When
right.
you go through a journey like this, and she
Hmm.
lost the
Hmm.
12 pounds, she had on her cute little sexy dress at her birthday party, it really just empowered her to feel confident and feel like her best self. And I think that's helpful is to have a plan, but one that can be customized for
Right.
your body and your life and really see the results. I mean, I think she had an 83% symptom improvement in
I
5 months.
think I think I saw it in your Instagram. You posted a before and after picture where she had lost a lot of weight. You said that there's testings and stuff like that, but can you recommend something that somebody that is listening to us right now can use to figure out what or how to measure their gut health?
Yes, yes, great good question. So I would definitely encourage anyone who's listening right now. One of the first things you can do, awareness
Mhm.
is your power. It's your superpower. So first and foremost, I would say start to get curious and become aware of what are your symptoms showing you. So I'm
Right.
happy to share with your listeners, Claudia, my free hormone health assessment. This
Hmm.
is looking at those top 6 metabolic hormones. And really what it has you do is answer a couple of questions about your symptoms. Like, do you have headaches? Do you
Right.
get bloating? Do you have brain fog? Like, what is it that your symptoms that you're experiencing? And how does that correlate to these different hormones? Is it mostly like an insulin thing? Or is it more a cortisol thing for you? Is it going to be thyroid? What is it that's likely showing up in your body? So that's step number one. I would definitely encourage your listeners to start there. And then if
Right.
they want to take it deeper, to look at some of the data in terms of lab work, like I said, there are a couple different pieces that you can look at, whether it be looking at your nutrient status
Hmm.
or if it's more of a digestive thing, looking at some people will do a stool test to see how the health of your gut is. But you can work with, and there are many different practitioners, functional
Hmm.
practitioners that can help you to have some testing done and then be able to interpret and understand what that's showing you about your body. So that gives you a game plan of where to start to help support.
Yeah, and maybe that will be the answer for the bloating, and you don't know. And that's what is going to bring you to realize, okay, if I change my diet or if add these different supplements, then I'm not going to have that bloating. And sometimes that's the only problem somebody has. Yay. But it's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah.
That's what we're dealing with. Suddenly you put a pair of pants and it doesn't fit you anymore. And that's when you have that aha moment. It's like, wait a minute, what's happening to my body? I don't fit in myself
Yeah.
anymore. So then you're absolutely right. Get curious and find out what is causing that. What do you need to
Mhm.
change in your life so you can kind of step back to where you were before and start having a healthier life. Another thing that you mentioned was inflammation. And I think we don't understand what inflammation is. We talk about anti-inflammatories or how I get a chronic inflammation, but that has a lot to do with your autoimmune system.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Inflammation in itself is actually a very healthy process. It's purposeful. Like when you think about it, if you cut yourself and
Mhm.
then that cut starts to scab over and it stops bleeding and it scabs over and heals, that's inflammation, right?
Right.
Inflammation is how your body responds to injury or stressor or something like that, right?
Mhm.
Even if you have a cold, that's like inflammation. It's your body's immune system creating some mucus and kind
Uh,
of helping to flush out the virus or the bacteria. Inflammation is not the problem. The problem is when the immune system becomes dysregulated and it doesn't shut off the inflammation. Like inflammation is meant to be there for a period of time to help you heal. And then the body's supposed to cycle out of the inflammatory phase and go back to the rebuilding phase. Inflammation becomes a problem when your body's like stuck in the heal, 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 and keeps sending out these inflammatory cytokines to create whatever
mhm.
it be it hives or a reaction or swelling or water, whatever it is. That's the problem. It's actually the immune system that's not being supported or regulated because our immune system, when it's functioning ideally, it's
Right.
designed to not respond. 99% of the time. Because we, most of the time in our daily life, we're not at threat of death, right? So when you have a healthy, robust, strong immune system for most of the things that your body comes in contact with, its job is to not respond. However, we can get a situation where our immune system has been so triggered because we have whatever the choices we're leading in our life, whether it be even from exposure from toxic things we're putting on our skin and slathering up with a lot of chemicals, or from freak out reaction to a fight we had with our spouse, whatever it is, it's triggering not safe, not safe, not safe. And then it's like the immune system is responding almost like a caged dog would respond. Like if you have a caged dog that's been beat and whipped, even if you go to pet it really nicely, it's going to growl.
It's gonna react,
Sometimes the immune system reacts and freaks out to things that it really doesn't need to react to, or gets stuck freaking out. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
That's kind
yeah.
of like it's so inflammation is really about kind of a stuck immune system.
And to an extent, it's a friend because it's bringing light to something that is not working in your body, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. The TEDx talk that's coming up here, and I always talk about them. The theme is, what if your symptoms are actually your biggest gift? And it's exactly that message. It's like if we got curious and if we were willing to lean in when our body was signaling things that we don't prefer, that is where the powerful transformation can happen. Rather than most women, it's easy to like feel frustrated, to feel resentful of our body, to feel like our body just is our enemy and never seems to, do what we want it to do. So it's easy to get in that stuck cycle of feeling disempowered in your body. But when we can shift that to a place of curiosity, now it's a whole new ballgame. Now you got the doors open.
Yeah. And sometimes also you were talking about skin, we use sunscreen to protect ourselves from the sun, but also we need vitamin D, right? And
Yeah,
vitamin D is a hormone, right?
yeah.
So think about that. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, we need that for our body, but then we're protecting it. So when you talk to your clients, what are certain foods, what do you recommend that they take to get those hormones that perhaps they cannot take it in another way?
Yeah, so I'll share with you my super simple one-hand meal plan approach, Claudia. This is all, I mean, again, I'm not saying this is going to cover every single basis for every human out there, but it is a fabulous way to build a foundation from. And it stands for PFFV. So if you were to think about at each meal, 3 times a day, my goal is PFFV, you're going to be in a really solid place. What do I mean by that? P is for protein. So thinking about a palm-sized serving of protein at each meal, that's going to give you the amino acids that your cells need, and your liver needs a lot of amino acids to be able to remove toxins. So that's P. The first F is for fiber. So you want to think of fiber-rich foods. So thinking of like a scoop, if you were to take your hand, a scoop, at a minimum, a scoop of fiber-rich foods each meal. This can be things like, one of my favorite sources is legumes. It's kidney beans, lentil beans, garbanzo beans have great sources of fiber, and they're not really heavy, and you don't have to have a massive quantity in order to get the fiber. Also, there's fiber found in whole grains, things like quinoa, rice, seeds, things like that. The next F is for fatty acids, healthy omega-3 fatty acid. So if you want to think of like a thumb size serving of healthy fatty acids, we need those omega-3s to build the cell membrane, the outer layer of the cell that dictates what nutrients come in and go out, has to be fluid and flexible and pliable. And it's made of cholesterol and fatty acids. So we need healthy fatty acids. And now those are things like, olive oil, avocados, salmon, walnuts. These are really great sources of omega-3 fatty acids. So even like sprinkling a couple of walnuts on your salad can help to add that. Or, if you have a morning smoothie, adding in some chia seed powder can give you that healthy omega-3, right? And then that last V is for vegetable. And I emphasize vegetable even more than fruits. Of course, fruits are beneficial too, and they have other vitamins and minerals. But vegetables in particular tend to have lower sugar content and still higher mineral and vitamin content. So if you think of a full fist size at a minimum of veggies every meal, breakfast, including breakfast, lunch, and dinner, then you have your PFFV, you have a really good foundation to build from, because that's going to give you, again, a whole kind of the medley of nutrients that your body will need.
Wow. This has been a one-on-one class of how to get healthy in 40 minutes. Oh my goodness. I
Yes.
so much appreciate you being here. This is so much information, and I'm sure that I'm going to get a lot of questions. I'm going to have all your information in the bottom and the description of the show. Is there anything you would like to add?
Say, take my invitation. Anyone who's listening and has followed us through to this point, clearly something is resonating with you. So take a step and start with the hormone assessment. Just start to get curious. I'll give you the link so people can check it out. But this is something that will get you thinking of like, maybe for me, it is my thyroid levels, or maybe
Right.
for me, it's my cortisol level. So start to get curious so that you can then, open up that possibility for where to support your body further.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Amanda. This has been incredibly enlightening for me, especially because I don't have a thyroid and I do have all the symptoms that you mentioned, and I'm always tired. And, sometimes I am tired, but I can't sleep. So, knowing everything that you shared today, it has given me a whole different idea of the things and the steps that I need to take to help myself being healthier and happier,
Mhm.
because what you said, if your mind is in a better place, your body is going to be in a better place. So I so much appreciate you being here today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me, Claudia.